Who's ready for some spooky cute fun? Today I'm playing with the Vampy Family Stamp Set from CC Designs, and I'm mixing it up with some bold Halloween pattern paper. Let's get into it. So like I said, I'm using the Vampy Family Stamp Set, the spooky things paper, and we're going to be doing some Copic coloring to match our pattern paper, which is the pattern I chose right there. So we're going to start off. This one actually color combination is not in the pattern paper, but we needed it for the kids' hair. So I'm using E59. I'm using E29, E19, E09, and E08 for the red hair combination. I've started off by coloring in the shadows of each of the curl section of the little boy's hair. And I'm using the E29 for that. We're going to do all of the little shadow areas of his curly hair and just put that in. I usually try when I'm coloring hair to go ahead and do the shadows first and then come and work my way out. So I've moved on to the E19 and we're going to blend our shadow color out. This is our second shadow color, our mid-tone shadow. So we will go ahead and blend all of our shadow out. And I'm still going in the direction of the curls. So if, depending on the direction they are is how I put in the color. So you want to be careful of that, especially on a curly haired image. Now we're going to move on to E09 and we're going to blend everything out. That is my mid-tone color. So we will blend that out and just keep going and get all that smooth and nice, but you can still see I'm going in those same directional patterns as those curls. Now we're going to move on to our highlight color, which is E08. So we'll blend everything out with that. I'm going to also use this same color combination on the other little boy's hair, but because it is straight, we will color it a little bit differently. So we'll just finish blending that out. All right, we've got our last little color on there. Now we're going to go to our other little boy, and I'll usually start in the part and in the bang area on this. And I'm going to use that darkest color first. I always put that in first because in a natural image or natural photo or natural person, the part is going to be usually a little darker. And the same thing with the tips of the bangs because of how the light hits. So that's why I always do that. And I blend out with my second mid-tone and my mid-tone color. And then I always end up with the highlight in the center of each section. That way it gives me a nice low light and highlight area. Now for our little wolf, we're going to use E59, E57, E55, and E53 to start out. And I'm coloring her hair at the top of her head the same way and the same thing around her little face. We're going to do that same concept. We're going to start with our darkest color on the ends and around the face because that would technically be in shadow because of how hair grows. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. I'm going to add the shadows on her little feet and legs. And we will blend that out with the E57. So I will work that in. I'm going to add a little to her ears. So we're just going to keep blending. That's all together. And that's our second shadow color. That's our mid-tone shadow, is what I like to call it. So we'll blend that out and do her little hands and her feet. I forgot her little hand over there, so I had to go back and do that. So we'll just blend that out right there. We're going to come in with that mid-tone and add that in to both sections of our blending. Blend everything out together. And you notice I am leaving a little section each time in the center of their hair for that natural highlight hit of the light. So we'll blend that out with the E53 and put that highlight right there. We're going to add a little of that color into her ears. I will add pink into her ears in a little while. I'm going to keep the two lightest colors for this, and those are going to change to my mid-tone shadow and my mid-tone for the skin tone. I added an E51 for the lightest shade of her skin, which is technically the lightest shade of her fur on her face. So we're starting off with that E55, blending it out with the E53, and I'll blend everything together with the E51 for a nice cohesive look. And now I'm going to color her little nose. I just went back to the E59 and E57 to do that. So I'll blend that out. Now for our little vampire girl, I'm going to use C9, C7, and C5. She's going to be a little dark-headed little girl. So again, you can see I started out with the top, which is technically where the bangs or part would be. And anytime I have a little section that pokes out in an image, I will add that shadow in the tip and in the top part of it as well. So everything's nice and cohesive. I'm blending out with the C7, and then I will blend everything out shortly with our highlight color, which is that C5. So you can see I'm pulling everything down and together. Now we're going to blend it all together with that C5 so that its hair has a natural highlight hitting it where the light would hit. All right, moving on to our skin tone combination, we're going to use E11, E21, E00, and E000. So I've started out adding that E11 in the shadow areas of our little boy's face. And then we will blend that with a little of this E21. And I will just extend what I've previously colored just out a little bit. I always make sure I go back over what I previously colored so I can get a nice cohesive blend. Now we switched on to that E00. And then my highlight will be the E000. And I colored all three of the kids' faces, even the vampire. I colored all their skin tone with this same color combination. So you're going to see it 2 more times. And I only kept this in here because of how some of them are facing a different direction. I wanted you to see how the shadows actually change a little bit because of how they're facing. Like, for example, this little boy here. You can see that his face turned a different way, so we're going to have a little bit more shadow on that right side compared to the left side. And you want to really pay attention to your images and how they're drawn to know where to put those shadows. And some images actually have shadow lines that indicate where there are shadows supposed to go. Not all companies do that, but some do. So when you have those little hash marks in your stamps, those are shadow lines. That's why those are in there, to indicate to you from the designer that those are shadows. But most companies that I deal with now do mostly the line art, and I can create whatever color I want to do and put my shadows where I want to do or want to go. So we're just going to add our finishing touch to our little vampire over here, and then we're going to start working on their clothes. And I kept everything in a cohesive color scheme based on our pattern paper. So I always like to pull through the colors throughout my images. So like for his little purple shirt, we're going to have that. We're going to give him some purple shoes as well. And you saw that combination up on the screen. It's V09, V17, V15, V12. So we are going to do his little shoes, that same color combination. And I'm going to give almost all of them, at least 3 of them will always have, not always have, but 3 of them will have that same violet combination so that my card looks nice and cohesive. That's one way to keep your cards looking cohesive when you're dealing with a color palette. Pick your color palette and extend your image color through your images at least 3 different places. That way everything looks nice and cohesive. And when we get to the finished card, you're going to really see how that pops. Or if you follow me, you've already seen that in several cards that we've done, where we keep our color palette the same and we just extend them out throughout the card. It helps you create that cohesive, balanced look for all your images, and you're not having to pull out a ton of different supplies. Now, I did give her some violet eyes just because I thought they looked a little spooky. I did grab the wrong color there and had to come back and grab the darkest, the V9, for her little dress. And then we will blend that out with the correct color, the V17. And I will just pull that out, extending it out a little bit. I will extend the others out a little bit with the V15 and the V12. Now we're going to come to our orange combination. All right, for our orange combination, we are using YR68, YR16. I lost my numbers here. Yeah, it's on the screen, but YR16, YR15, and YR14 for my orange. And even though it's Halloween, I still had to put some orange in there because it is my favorite color. So it was going to be somewhere in this card. We just didn't know where yet. But anyway, those were I'm going to add it, and we're going to add it again throughout the card on our little images so that everything is cohesive. We're going to give our little boy over here some orange on his shirt. Actually, I gave him orange on his pants instead. And we will add orange details to the other two images as well to keep everything nice and cohesive, as we were talking about before. So if you're not into coloring, that's okay. I will try to remember to put timestamps below where you can go past the coloring process if you don't want to watch that. And you can jump ahead to where we start assembling and doing our powder paper mixing. And yes, today is the unofficial start of my Halloween card series for 2025. So you will be able to watch some lovely Halloween cards coming up. I wasn't officially going to start until September, but I decided with this card and the great August release from CC Designs that we would go ahead and do a little kickoff using this unofficially. They will be sporadically through this month, and then next month I will have more regular Halloween cards for the series. But we will also be doing that. Now we're going to color our yellow-green combination. And if you don't know, I am a big Halloween card fan. I love making cards for Halloween. I love making cards for the holidays. So that's what you're going to find a lot here. I just think they're fun, especially Halloween, because I love Halloween. I love fall. Those are my favorite 2 times of the year. I just really enjoy those. So I always try to do a Halloween card series. You can find the previous ones listed in playlists below if you want to check those out. There's a couple years down in there with different projects. All right, we're going to give them a little green eyes. I gave the guys, they're going to have blue eyes, blue-green eyes actually, because we're going to use some blue-green colors. So we're just going to go ahead and finish coloring that. I added some green to her little collar to tie in that green with her. We're going to do our blue-green combination. He's going to have some blue pants on. I'm going to say they're like a brighter blue jean color. So we're just using that, and we're going to blend those out. You saw those markers up on the screen, so I shouldn't even have to tell you what they are. But they are BG45, BG15, BG13, and BG23. To me, the BG23, when I looked at my swatch, it was lighter than the 13. But I really question that once I started coloring. Because to me, it looked a little darker when I laid it down next to that B13 or BG13. But then I had to remember that the alcohol marker was still wet. The ink was still wet. So it's going to look brighter. And then once it dried back, it was perfectly fine. So I was a little worried there for a minute. Now, further, I'm going to give them all the little rosy cheeks. I'm using RV21 first. And just putting their little cheeks in where they have it. I also use that color combination to color their tongues, the ones that have their mouths open. I'm going to blend that out with RV11 and RV10. So I just added a little bit of RV10 right around their cheeks to blend everything together. Even our little werewolf over there, because she's so cute. Now, because I was lazy and I didn't want to color his mouth, I just colored it in black. You could actually, you do see his tonsil back there, because you could actually color it in a dark red. I just chose not to do that. I just chose to be lazy and do it the easy way. Now, for her little stripes on her, the rest of her little leggings, I just used the same combination for her hair. Now, I'm going to cut these out. And yes, I had to fussy cut. Now we're going to work on the background panel. So I've used an elongated stitch oval die. And I'm adding prize ribbon ink around the top, probably third section of that die cut. I did cut it out of Bristol Smooth cardstock. Now I'm coming in with some Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink to add a little ground back there. And I'm going to blend those together slightly, let them kind of meld through the top. And then I'm going to come in with some black soot, because this is going to be a nighttime little scene up here. So we're going to add black soot around the top and around the edge of that side on both sides, as if it's giving a center highlight. That's the effect I was going for. Now I'm going to come back in with just the ink left on the brush and blend everything a little bit smoother together. And I will do the same thing with that black soot. Just pull it down just a little bit, just so it blended a little bit more than what I was. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to splatter it with some iridescent shimmer spray and some picket fence, the white picket fence stain. What's it's called? Dang it. Picket fence spray stain. God, I can never remember that. Now I've got an orange card base. I'm going to make sure that it's folded nice and crisply. And we're going to start adding our pattern paper. So this is the pattern paper I chose for the palette. Had all my colors in it. I'm going to use the large polka dots for a nice, bold, graphic image. And I'm going to tone that down with a little bit of a tone-on-tone orange, smaller polka dot. Normally, I probably wouldn't have put two polka dots together. But for this pattern paper, it actually worked since it was a Halloween card. Now I'm going to add a little splash of color with the plaid pattern paper. And I'm going to put that right across the center of the card. And it adds just a little bit more of our color palette right into our card. I'm going to open my card up, put it back in my Misty, and I'm going to take our little vampire girl and our little sentiment that says a zing only happens once in a life. I really don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's something from the Hotel Transylvania movie. I really don't know. So we're going to stamp that down. I'm going to stamp it twice. I'd stamped it in pumpkin ink. So I went ahead and stamped that down. I'm going to remove my card from my Misty, and I'm going to place my panel in there. And Rick screws up. I'm going to stamp the sentiment on the outside that says sending snuggles and smiles. I stamped it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink and flipped it over on that little silicone mat, not thinking that ink was not dry yet. I was thinking, oh, that ink, it dries pretty fast, so it should be okay. Not on a silicone mat. It's smudged. So I'm adding foam tape behind there. And it has just, and I lift this up, you can see that it has smudged everywhere and the ink transferred. So we are going to have to fix that. And don't you think we're going to start over again, because we are not. We're going to make this baby work. We're going to pop off those backings of that foam tape. We are going to add a little liquid glue right behind there. So it gives us a little bit of wiggle room so we can move this where we want it and make it nice and straight. Because heaven knows I cannot line anything up straight to save my life. So we're going to pop that on. Now, I'm going to take and go ahead and arrange my little guys and my little girls for my card, and I'm going to go ahead and attach these babies down because Rick is not doing this card over. I'm not starting over. I'm not redoing that panel. I'm going to make this work. So we're going to add our little boy, our tallest little boy first in the back. We're going to add our little werewolf girl over to the right-hand side of the card and move her over just a little bit. We're going to add our next little boy over here. At least I think he's a boy. I really don't know. You know, I probably need to watch this movie. So that's another thought for another time. All right, we're going to add another little girl over on the other side, our little vampy girl. And now I'm going to go and cut out a banner and stamp my sentiment again and let it dry. I think these came from the Everyday Banner Dies set. So I've cut that out from just white cardstock, stamped it, put it on, stuck it right under the feet. No one will know the difference and everyone will be the wiser. So we're going to start adding some highlights with our white gel pen to make our images pop even more. Because you know we got to have those white gel pen highlights to make everything pop. All right, so we're going to finish adding our little highlights on our little girl. We're going to add them to the little werewolf too. I made sure to add one to her little nose because her nose is probably damp and wet, just like our little puppy. And there's when I went back and added the pink to her ears to blend that out. So you got to have that little highlight right there on the nose. And we're going to add highlights to our little guys. I added some to his pants and to his face, also to their hair. You know, any place that a light would be hitting, I added a little bit of highlight. Even though it's a nighttime scene, you're going to have light somewhere hitting and making those highlights. So don't forget your highlights, people. They are critical. We love our gel pen highlight. Now, we need a little bit of sparkle because this is a Halloween card. So we're going to add my favorite Stardust Stickles to each of our little images. And I'm going to smooth some of them out with my finger. And some of them I do not. I added some to her little pacifier in her mouth. Or what do y'all call that? We call it a pacifier here in the South. I know some people call them binkies. So let me know what you call those in the comments below. We're going to add some to our little guys over here. And yes, we did. We added glitter to them as well because by God, it's a Halloween card. Here's a look at my card. There's a look at the inside. There's a closer look at the card. If you like this video, you're probably going to like the one coming up right over there. Bye, guys. Love you. Stay crafty. I'll see you in the next video.